Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson with Reality Shifters and the International Mandela Effect Conference, and you're now listening to DarkWolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is
Chris
intended
Weber
for
works with a
mature
group that
audiences
counsels
only.
Amish teens on drug and
Enjoy.
alcohol abuse.
The trick is, with the Amish, they do everything in large social circles. So what you get is you're not going to have 5 kids sitting in a bedroom drinking beer and watching a DVD. You're going to have 50 kids in a shop playing beer pong because that's the size of their social circle.
After Rumspringa, most Amish teenagers rejoin the community, but they often try to incorporate some of the modern technology they've encountered on the outside without violating their beliefs. In the past, for example, they've hired non-Amish people to drive cars for them, or they've put up phone booths outside of their homes. It will be fascinating to see what impact Facebook has on the future of this faith.
Such an interesting part of their culture, and as the writer at BuzzFeed, who initially reported this story, pointed out, even though these kids are posting inappropriate pictures on their social network feeds, most likely their parents will never see it because their parents are not computer literate.
Right, so two different worlds.
Absolutely two different worlds.
Fascinating.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation, don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the DarkWolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live worldwide from a secret mountain cave hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, ripping through the electromagnetic suit, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the DarkWolf's Den Show for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to be discussing reality and consciousness as, you know, our way of perceiving reality. But what is reality? I know us in the Mandela Effect community have tried to define this a large number of times, but how do we perceive through our consciousness the reality around us? And it's really going to be an interesting discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you stick right there. But first, today in history. On this day in 1937, the very first U.S. presidential inauguration day is held. The previous date was March 4th, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting little nugget of information there, and that is today's Today in History. If you don't learn something new every day, your day has been wasted. Now, for me, it's usually something that I had learned, forgotten, and learned again. But, you know, I think that counts, right, guys? That count? Go ahead and put me a 1 in the chat room over there if that counts. Go ahead and put me a 2 if you already learned it the first time so it don't count. I really love you guys. I hope it's a 1. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, but to learn something is a conscious experience, right? You got to be conscious to be able to learn. And you got to learn from the reality around you. But what is reality, right? How is that defined? It's defined by our senses. But how our senses define? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our guest speaker tonight, one of my favorite lecturers and researchers, Dr. Donald Hoffman.
I love a great mystery, and I'm fascinated by the greatest unsolved mystery in science, perhaps because it's personal. It's about who we are, and I can't help but be curious. The mystery is this: what is the relationship between your brain and your conscious experiences, such as your experience of the taste of chocolate or the feeling of velvet? Now, this mystery is not new. In 1868, Thomas Huxley wrote, "How it is that anything so remarkable as a state of consciousness comes about as the result of irritating nervous tissue is just as unaccountable as the appearance of the genie when Aladdin rubbed his lamp."
I gotta say, I really like that analogy, right? The equivalent of a genie popping out of the lamp when you rub it is the likelihood that consciousness could arise from brain tissue, basically.
Now, Huxley knew that brain activity and conscious experiences are correlated, but he didn't know why. To the science of his day, it was a mystery. In the years since Huxley, science has learned a lot about brain activity, but the relationship between brain activity and conscious experiences is still a mystery. Why? Why have we made so little progress? Well, some experts think that we can't solve this problem because we lack the necessary concepts and intelligence. We don't expect monkeys to solve problems in quantum mechanics, and as it happens, we can't expect our species to solve this problem either.
And I think that's a little bit of an underscore for mankind. I think we could actually have the ability to solve this problem. We just have to be more open-minded to ideas that we've decided belong in the wrong categories, like only religion or only this and that. We need to re-establish the way we think about some of these things.
Well, I disagree. I'm more optimistic. I think we've simply made a false assumption. Once we fix it, we just might solve this problem.
I think they've made quite a few false assumptions over the years. Just go back and listen to the last 52 shows we've done. We should be able to prove the point pretty well at this point. But yeah, these false assumptions, these dogmatic assumptions are just not good. And this is why we have to be more open-minded to different ways of thinking about old problems.
Today I'd like to tell you what that assumption is, why it's false, and how to fix it. Let's begin with a question. Do we see reality as it is?
For those playing along at home or listening later, this is question 2. If you want to join in, you can go ahead and comment down in the comment section below when it's on demand over on the DarkWolf's Den Show channel, ladies and gentlemen. But if you'd like to play along at home, this is question 2, and question is, do we see reality as it is, right? Do we, everything we see around us, is it as it is? Or is there a little more to the story? Go ahead and put a 1 if you believe, we see things as is, our 5 senses pick it all up, and that's all there is to it. Go ahead and put a 2 if you think it's a little different, and that might not be the case. There might be a little more to it. And put a 3 if you're just kind of on the borderline and just enjoying sitting there listening. I just had to come up with a 3, sorry. But nevertheless, Dr. Hoffman's about to give us an example, a really simple example of the falsity that is in question.
I open my eyes, and I have an experience that I describe as a red tomato a meter away. As a result, I come to believe that in reality, there's a red tomato a meter away.
Yeah, that seems logical.
I then close my eyes, and my experience changes to a gray field. But is it still the case that in reality, there's a red tomato a meter away?
When you close your eyes, does the world still actually exist? And this is something that is a big question in quantum physics, and Einstein did not like this, and he was actually even quoted more than once, I do believe, as saying, and I quote, "I refuse to believe that when I close my eyes, the moon disappears." And end quote. And I agree. I really feel that the physical reality is around me, and that's what is real. If I hit my desk in front of me, it's going to hurt, right? The mic I'm talking into is a solid object, at least to a degree, right? So, I believe that reality itself is real. But is it really when I close my eyes, or does it disappear? What do you guys think? This is question number 3. Put a 1 in the chat room if you think that it exists while you're got your eyes closed. If reality's still there, you're laying on the bed, you can still feel it below you. It's clearly still there, right? Or put a 2 if you think everything just poofs out of existence when you stop looking at it. The old question, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound, right? Does it have to have an observer? Does reality itself have to have an observer to exist?
I think so. But could I be wrong? Could I be misinterpreting the nature of my perceptions? We've misinterpreted our perceptions before. We used to think the Earth is flat because it looks that way. Pythagoras discovered that we were wrong.
And I would actually prefer just not to have that particular argument over flat or globe. My guest speaks for himself, and I would like to leave that at that, please.
Then we thought that the Earth is the unmoving center of the universe, again because it looks that way. Copernicus and Galileo discovered, again, that we were wrong.
Now, whether you agree with one of those or not, the other one, I'm sure everybody can be a little more agreeable to. Either way, the fact and the point being made here is the fact that science, more times than not, has got it wrong. And I really went into that in my very first episode about cryptids and how many science had claimed at different times were cryptid creatures, like the gorilla until 1902 was considered a cryptid. Science has got it wrong many times.
Galileo then wondered if we might be misinterpreting our experiences in other ways. He wrote, "I think that tastes, odors, colors, and so on reside in consciousness. Hence, if the living creature were removed, all these qualities would be annihilated." Now that's a stunning claim. Could Galileo be right? Could we really be misinterpreting our experiences that badly? What does modern science have to say about this?
Remember, most of modern science is based in scientism.
Well, neuroscientists tell us that about a third of the brain's cortex is engaged in vision. When you simply open your eyes and look about this room, billions of neurons and trillions of synapses are engaged. Now, this is a bit surprising because to the extent that we think about vision at all, we think of it as like a camera that just takes a picture of objective reality as it is. Now, there is a part of vision that's like a camera. The eye has a lens that focuses an image on the back of the eye where there are 130 million photoreceptors. So the eye is like a 130 megapixel camera. But that doesn't explain the billions of neurons and trillions of synapses that are engaged in vision. What are these neurons up to? Well, neuroscientists tell us that they're creating in real time all the shapes, objects, colors, and motions that we see. It feels like we're just taking a snapshot of this room the way it is, but in fact, we're constructing everything that we see. We don't construct the whole world at once. We construct what we need in the moment. Now, there are many demonstrations that are quite compelling that we construct what we see. I'll just show you two.
So what do you guys think? Do you think we construct what we see in our minds? I mean, there is the optical illusions, right?
In this example, you see some red discs with bits cut out of them. But if I just rotate the discs a little bit, suddenly you see a 3D cube pop out of the screen. Now, the screen, of course, is flat, so the three-dimensional cube that you're experiencing must be your construction.
And we've all seen the simple design of a cube on a piece of paper, right? Yeah, 3D object it looks like to our eyes, but it's made out of 2D lines connected together.
In this next example, you see glowing blue bars with pretty sharp edges moving across a field of dots. In fact, no dots move. All I'm doing from frame to frame is changing the colors of dots from blue to black or black to blue. But when I do this quickly, your visual system creates the glowing blue bars with the sharp edges and the motion. There are many more examples, but these are just two that you construct what you see.
And we've all seen the different visual illusions that exist. There's more than a dozen and a half of them, I'm sure. And you can, consider whichever one you would like. But either way, it comes down to the fact that our visual cortex or what the camera that we use can be tricked. And that's why magical illusions work, right? A sleight of the hand, what the eye doesn't see, and then what the eye does see. It's easy to pull off different illusions if you know the sleight of hand tricks to do, right? But it still doesn't explain consciousness itself, or reality itself, I should say.
But neuroscientists go further. They say that we reconstruct reality. So when I have an experience that I describe as a red tomato, that experience is actually an accurate reconstruction of the properties of a real red tomato that would exist even if I weren't looking. Now, why would neuroscientists say that we don't just construct, we reconstruct? Well, the standard argument given is usually an evolutionary one. Those of our ancestors who saw more accurately had a competitive advantage compared to those who saw less accurately, and therefore they were more likely to pass on their genes.
The same reason, in my opinion, that we have the ability to feel when someone is staring at us or feel one's consciousness invading our own conscious space.
We're the offspring of those who saw more accurately, and so we can be confident that, in the normal case, our perceptions are accurate. You see this in the standard textbooks. One textbook says, for example, evolutionarily speaking, vision is useful precisely because it's so accurate. So the idea is that accurate perceptions are fitter perceptions. They give you a survival advantage. Now, is this correct? Is this the right interpretation of evolutionary theory? Well, let's first look at a couple examples in nature.
So the question on the table is, are accurate perceptions fitter perceptions, or is it better to see the world exactly as it is, as accurate as possible, or is that actually a folly in thought? What do you guys think? Go ahead, put a 1 if you think that it is most survivably accurate to see the world exactly as it is, and put a 2 if you think that is not the case at all.
The Australian jewel beetle is dimpled, glossy, and brown. The female is flightless. The male flies, looking, of course, for a hot female. When he finds one, he alights and mates. There's another species in the outback, Homo sapiens. The male of this species has a massive brain that he uses to hunt for cold beer. And when he finds one, he drains it and sometimes throws the bottle into the outback. Now, as it happens, these bottles are dimpled, glossy, and just the right shade of brown to tickle the fancy of these beetles. The males swarm all over the bottles, trying to mate. They lose all interest in the real females. A classic case of the male leaving the female for the bottle.
Classic case indeed, but again, it goes to show what they thought was a reality was not quite what they thought. They thought a bottle was one of their own species.
The species almost went extinct. Australia had to change its bottles to save its beetles. Now, the males had successfully found females for thousands, perhaps millions of years. It looked like they saw reality as it is, but apparently not. Evolution had given them a hack. A female is anything dimpled, glossy, and brown. The bigger, the better. Even when crawling all over the bottle, the male couldn't discover his mistake. Now, you might say, beetles, sure. They're very simple creatures, but surely not mammals.
And I would agree with that argument. They don't have the largest of brain sizes or ability to hold the knowledge like mankind, right? We aren't talking to beetles, and they aren't talking back to, well, maybe some of you guys out there talk to beetles. I don't. And if I ever did, I've never heard a beetle talk back. So I don't think, they would have the brain capacity or the ability to talk. Or they had that kind of conscious experience, but mammals, they're much more advanced, much bigger creatures, much more smart creatures, right? There's no way they could be tricked with something like that.
Mammals don't rely on tricks. Well, I won't dwell on this, but you get the idea. So this raises an important technical question. Does natural selection really favor seeing reality as it is?
And once again, I see a mixed bag over there in the chat, the 1s and 2s coming in across the board there. And yeah, it is kind of a mixed bag, right? Do we see reality as it is, or do we think it is something different? Do we think it's maybe a little more or less to it than what we actually perceive? Are we perceiving what reality really is?
Fortunately, we don't have to wave our hands and guess. Evolution is a mathematically precise theory. We can use the equations of evolution to check this out. We can have various organisms or artificial worlds compete and see which survive and which thrive, which sensory systems are more fit.
So basically, they can take this question and run it through simulations and see what kind of answers actually come out.
A key notion in those equations is fitness. Consider this steak.
Consider a steak, yeah. You know, Wolf loves a good steak, right? I might consider having a steak. What about a steak, Doc? Why are we considering having a steak?
What does this steak do for the fitness of an animal? Well, for a hungry lion looking to eat, it enhances fitness. For a well-fed lion looking to mate, it doesn't enhance fitness.
A well-fed lion looking to mate isn't looking for food, so yeah, steak would be pointless at that point. If I had a full belly, a steak wouldn't sound so good, would it?
And for a rabbit, in any state, it doesn't enhance fitness. So fitness does depend on reality as it is, yes, but also on the organism, its state, and its action. Fitness is not the same thing as reality as it is, and it's fitness and not reality as it is that figures centrally in the equations of evolution.
In other words, if I need money, then I'm not going to be going out to a restaurant buying a steak, for instance. That's not what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going to try to find a job to get money, right? It depends on the state, action, and basically mindset of the organism, the fitness, what is needed at the time for the organism to survive. That's the suggestion by neuroscience, as well as evolutionary theory.
So in my lab, we have run hundreds of thousands of evolutionary game simulations with lots of different randomly chosen worlds and organisms that compete for resources in those worlds.
So far, we've got a really basic version of The Sims.
Some of the organisms see all of the reality, others see just part of the reality, and some see none of the reality, only fitness. Who wins?
All right, guys, who do you think's going to win? The one that sees all of reality, the one that sees part of reality, or the one that can see none of the actual reality? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room if you think it's the one that can see all of reality. Go ahead and put a 2 in the chat room if you think it's the one that can see only part of reality. And go ahead and put a 3 in the chat room if you think it's the one that doesn't see any of reality as it is. Go ahead and put those in the chat. Now, if you're playing along later or on demand, go ahead and drop it in the chat, or down below in the comment section, or think about it. And which one do you think wins? A, B, or C? 1, 2, or 3? Let me know.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but perception of reality goes extinct. In almost every simulation, organisms that see none of reality but are just tuned to fitness drive to extinction all the organisms that perceive reality as it is. So the bottom line is evolution does not favor vertical or accurate perceptions. Those perceptions of reality go extinct.
Mind officially blown, right? How many of you said it was number 3, the one that's seen none of reality as it is? Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back. You are absolutely correct, and mind-bogglingly so. Tell us, Doc, why is this the case? Why does evolution not favor seeing reality as is, but seeing reality basically as a construct, a fake version of reality?
Now, this is a bit stunning. How can it be that not seeing the world accurately gives us a survival advantage? That is a bit counterintuitive. But remember the jewel beetle. The jewel beetle survived for thousands, perhaps millions of years using simple tricks and hacks. What the equations of evolution are telling us is that all organisms, including us, are in the same boat as the jewel beetle. We do not see reality as it is. We're shaped with tricks and hacks that keep us alive.
One example that comes to mind for me is fear, right? And I know that sounds a little weird, but hear me out. It's the fear that keeps us safe. It's that fear that keeps us from doing stupid stuff like, stepping out in front of a train because we fear we're going to die, and we are right. But it's that fear that keeps us safe just as much as it does anything else. Now, is it good to be afraid all the time? No. But, the fear of snakes, that's a natural instinctual fear, and most people literally lock up when they see a snake. And this is an instinctual thing because of the fear factor. We know snakes are dangerous. They're poisonous. They can kill us, So it's this instinctuality. It's this fear that helps actually to keep us alive and from doing things that would end our species, to be honest with you. But speaking of ending, we've got to go ahead and end the first half right here, and we're going to take a network break, and we'll be right back with the second half of the DarkWolf's Den Show after these messages. Don't you touch that dial.
We got to stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, it's AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Guess what? Your weekend has officially begun. That's right, give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. If you're enjoying tonight's look at consciousness theory, part 1, and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell with notifications. And you'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of common sense radio, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Now, Jerry Hicks and the DarkWolf's Den will return again tomorrow night, Thursday, January 21st, to conclude part 2 of this 2-part series, The Consciousness Theory. So make sure to come back again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then I'll guide you through the rabbit holes of the rest of the weekend. I'll be back on Friday, January 22nd, as we explore strange people. That's right. People are strange. There isn't any question about that. Join me Friday night, and I'm going to unleash strange, because I'm kind of strange myself, but the people we're going to talk about Friday night, believe me, these people are strange. Then Saturday night, a serious look at the fascinating world of autism and those that deal with it. Just how do they deal with it? Just what is it? And what could we learn from understanding it better? Join me Saturday night and find out. Then we'll end out the weekend right together, Sunday, January 24th, 2021, as we explore the rabbit hole of mindfulness, how mindfulness works, and how we're all better off with it. Wouldn't you agree? I think so. I think in the times that we live in 2021, it's important for us to pay attention to our mindfulness. Mind your manners. That's what my grandma always said. Anyways, that's a look at the schedule ahead right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. If you haven't done so already, hop on over to rippinrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com, and sign up for a backstage pass. It's absolutely free to do so. It will unlock a bunch of bonus exclusive features just for you down the rabbit hole, including our weekly schedule that comes out every Wednesday morning. You won't want to miss it. rippinrabbithole.com. Now back to Jerry Hicks and the Consciousness Theory on the DarkWolf's Den Show.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the DarkWolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the DarkWolf's Den Show. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. It is January 20th, 2020, Inauguration Day in the USA, ladies and gentlemen, and I would just like to take a second and to speak a little bit on the things going on in the world. Now more than ever, I implore you, question everything. Everything, everything, everything. Question everything you hear right now. If you're a good researcher, then that is, of course, your number one goal is to question, and make sure you know the real truth, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, speaking of knowing the real truth of reality is hidden from us quite a bit, not just figuratively or in the newspapers or something like that. I mean, it is literally hid from us. We do not perceive reality as reality is. We perceive a different version of the reality using the five senses that we have. And this we found out in the first half is due to evolutionary ideas. It also really brings into question then what reality actually is, and how does consciousness have to do with any of this? Well, we are definitely got a lot of ground to cover and a little time to get there, ladies and gentlemen. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome back our guest speaker, Dr. Donald Hoffman.
We need some help with our intuitions. How can not perceiving reality as it is be useful? Well, fortunately, we have a very helpful metaphor. The desktop interface on your computer.
I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with the desktop on a computer.
Consider that blue icon for a TED Talk that you're writing. Now, the icon is blue and rectangular and in the lower right corner of the desktop. Does that mean that the text file itself in the computer is blue, rectangular, and in the lower right-hand corner of the computer? Of course not. Anyone who thought that misinterprets the purpose of the interface. It's not there to show you the reality of the computer. In fact, it's there to hide that reality. You don't want to know about the diodes and resistors and all the megabytes of software. If you had to deal with that, you could never write your text file or edit your photo. So the idea is that evolution has given us an interface that hides reality and guides adaptive behavior.
And I personally really like that PC analogy a lot, because it really is a good example. It's not as we perceive it. Just because it's got a little icon down at the bottom of your screen doesn't mean that's where the actual thing is located and looks like. It's just the perception that is given on top, the user interface, or GUI as it's sometimes called. And nature gives us the same thing, an interface, our five senses to go through, and our consciousness to process those five senses.
Space and time, as you perceive them right now, are your desktop. Physical objects are simply icons in that desktop. There's an obvious objection. Hoffman, if you think that train coming down the track at 200 miles an hour is just an icon of your desktop, why don't you step in front of it? And after you're gone and your theory with you, we'll know that there's more to that train than just an icon.
Wow, what a synchronicity. I did not know earlier when I made the train analogy that was actually part of this talk. So, wow, that is actually really kind of an interesting synchronicity for me. But the idea, as he's saying, is it is a icon as far as, interactivity. We are talking the edge of simulation theory here, let's be honest. But we are talking about the icons in reality, and like he said, if you step in front of a train, or like I said earlier, it's going to end reality. I can't believe I actually brought that up when I was talking about the fear earlier. That's just so synchronistic to me.
Well, I wouldn't step in front of that train for the same reason that I wouldn't carelessly drag that icon to the trash can. Not because I take the icon literally. The file is not literally blue or rectangular. but I do take it seriously. I could lose weeks of work. Similarly, evolution has shaped us with perceptual symbols that are designed to keep us alive.
Which relates back to that fear I was talking about once again.
We better take them seriously. If you see a snake, don't pick it up. If you see a cliff, don't jump off. They're designed to keep us safe, and we should take them seriously. But that does not mean that we should take them literally. That's a logical error.
Well, I seriously know that I will literally die if I jump off a cliff, so...
Another objection. Now, there's nothing really new here. Physicists have told us for a long time that the metal of that train looks solid, but really it's mostly empty space with microscopic particles zipping around. There's nothing new here.
Which, as we know, and if you don't know, then everything in everything is solid, right? But everything is actually 99.999% empty space. That's right. So even the desk that I'm sitting next to right now, as solid as it sounded just now, is actually made up of particles that are all 99 point all the nines empty space.
Well, not exactly.
I'm sorry, Doc. What? I just explained this to my audience. What do you mean, not exactly?
It's like saying, I know that that blue icon on the desktop is not the reality of the computer. But if I pull out my trusty magnifying glass and look really closely, I see little pixels. And that's the reality of the computer. Well, not really. You're still on the desktop. And that's the point. Those microscopic particles are still in space and time. They're still in the user interface. So I'm saying something far more radical than those physicists. Finally, you might object, look, we all see the train. Therefore, none of us constructs the train. But remember this example. In this example, we all see a cube. But the screen is flat. So the cube that you see is the cube that you construct. We all see a cube because each one of us constructs the cube that we see.
Just like one of the laws of matter is, two pieces of matter cannot exist in the same space at the same time, right? You also can't take two icons on a desktop, say I've got a game of solitaire, and I've got an icon for that and an icon for a notepad document. I'm not going to lay the one over the other. They don't go in the same space at the same time. They're within the same user interface, and they are solid to each other, but we know that to us they are simulations. They're not real, right? And well, the equal thing goes, as we're talking about here, with the interface we're given to the world. We see things through this interface in a not the real world way. It is recreated and reconstructed in our minds, our consciousness, if you will, our individual experiences. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is the individual experiences of consciousness as we perceive them from the world.
The same is true of the train. We all see a train because we each see the train that we construct. And the same is true of all physical objects.
And this, again, I'm going to go back to my person who is hallucinating thing that I always say, and that's the fact that if they see a dragon, to them, their reality is there's a dragon there. We can't construct that in our minds, but in their consciousness and their minds, there's just as much a dragon there as my voice is here talking to you now. It's the exact same concept. It's what's constructed within the consciousness that is real to the person. So how real is reality?
We're inclined to think that perception is like a window on reality as it is. The theory of evolution is telling us that this is an incorrect interpretation of our perceptions.
And to be clear, I don't back either creation or evolution. I'm very much on the fence on both, so don't think just because I'm presenting something like that, I back one side or the other. Just like many shows, I only present the information for your knowledge from the research that I've done. It's up to you to make the decision on whether you believe it's true or not, or just the fact that I don't necessarily have to agree with or believe with something to present it. Just want to make that clear. I know that's kind of one of those button issues, if you will. So, yeah, just so we're clear, I don't support either side. We're just basing our information from this talk on what science has told us and trying to prove how science is, well, like always, completely wrong. And let me be clear, dogmatic scientism is what I mean when I say science, not just regular real science. There is a difference.
Instead, reality is more like a 3D desktop that's designed to hide the complexity of the real world and guide adaptive behavior. Space as you perceive it is your desktop. Physical objects are just the icons in that desktop.
And it sounds like we have hit full-blown simulation theory at this point. But it does kind of come out of simulation theory, right? The analogy does anyway. And it's an interesting analogy indeed. Are we simulating our reality in our own consciousnesses? Is that why our consciousness can affect reality?
We used to think that the Earth is flat because it looks that way. Then we thought that the Earth is the unmoving center of reality because it looks that way. We were wrong. We had misinterpreted our perceptions. Now we believe that space-time and objects are the nature of reality as it is. The theory of evolution is telling us that once again, we're wrong.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to point out this time, I didn't say it. Dr. Donald Hoffman did, just to be clear.
We're misinterpreting the content of our perceptual experiences. There's something that exists when you don't look, but it's not space-time and physical objects. It's hard for us to let go of space-time and objects as it is for the jewel beetle to let go of its bottle. Why? Because we're blind to our own blindnesses.
Or as one of my favorite researchers, Mr. Jim Mars, may he rest in peace, used to put it, you don't know what you don't know.
But we have an advantage over the jewel beetle, our science and technology. By peering through the lens of a telescope, we discovered that the Earth is not the unmoving center of reality. By peering through the lens of the theory of evolution, we discovered that space-time and objects are not the nature of reality. When I have a perceptual experience that I describe as a red tomato, I am interacting with reality. But that reality is not a red tomato and is nothing like a red tomato.
It is the icon of a red tomato in whatever the underlying reality is.
Similarly, when I have an experience that I describe as a lion or a steak, I'm interacting with reality, but that reality is not a lion or a steak. And here's the kicker. When I have a perceptual experience that I describe as a brain or neurons, I am interacting with reality, but that reality is not a brain or neurons, and it's nothing like a brain or neurons.
But, you know, all of this, thinking about it, really begs a question in my mind, and that is, if we don't perceive reality as reality is, then what is it that we don't perceive? How far down can we go? Like, we know about the quantum world, and we know that's weird, and there's theories that says it could surpass the quantum world down to another layer, and it really makes you wonder about, you know, what it is that makes up these other layers of, quote, reality.
And that reality, whatever it is the real source of cause and effect in the world. Not brains, not neurons. Brains and neurons have no causal powers. They cause none of our perceptual experiences and none of our behavior. Brains and neurons are a species-specific set of symbols, a hack. What does this mean for the mystery of consciousness? Well, it opens up new possibilities. For instance, perhaps reality is some vast machine that causes our conscious experiences. I doubt this, but it's worth exploring.
And what's really, really fun about this is that you can put more ideas back on the table. Ideas that would be considered ridiculous by scientism. But if you really have a scientific mind and really want to think outside the box, you really can for a moment put all the fun ideas on the table and see what pans out, see what matches up the most. That's one thing I love about theorizing, especially when it comes to like Mandela effect or paranormal in general. I'm known for doing the Mandela effect theory, even though I've run out of Mandela effect theory. Still, I've always theorized about the paranormal, and in these circumstances, when you're able to just take the shackles off and say, all right, well, something's different here. Let's brainstorm, let's see what kind of stuff we can come up with, and then narrow things back down. It really can be fun to put these concepts back on the table. I personally don't know about the universe machine theory. I've heard it a couple times, but I'm not entirely sure I fully buy that. Then again, you've got people that talk about the machine elves when they're on DMT and different substances of such. So anything, I guess, is possible. And it doesn't exactly fit my theory, and we can get into that later, but it is definitely anything is possible, right?
Perhaps reality is some vast interacting network of conscious agents, simple and complex, that cause each other's conscious experiences. Actually, this isn't as crazy an idea as it seems, and I'm currently exploring it. But here's the point. Once we let go of our massively intuitive but massively false assumption about the nature of reality, it opens up new ways to think about life's greatest mystery. I bet that reality will end up turning out to be more fascinating and unexpected than we'd ever imagined. The theory of evolution presents us with the ultimate dare. Dare to recognize that perception is not about seeing truth. It's about having kids. And by the way, even this TED is just in your head. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dr. Hoffman. And it's really interesting, when you look at reality and the different layers of reality and what they could be. And again, we know about the quantum world and protons, neutrons, electrons, all those good, jolly little things. But the quantum level might not be the end of the line. Some scientists like Dr. Michio Kaku think that there could be strings at a very much lower level, and these strings vibrate to create the electrons, protons, neutrons, so on and so forth, like a symphony of creation. And that is an interesting and amazing idea, but I would take it one step further and say, a layer below that, all of it is being controlled by a consciousness, a collective consciousness of the entire universe, one that we are all plugged into by some fashion. And that is what I think consciousness is. I think it is something that our brain interprets, filters through, if you will, and we perceive the reality through these filters, but just the same, it is being interpreted by the brain, and your consciousness is like a stream, if you will, coming into that computer. So that is my idea on that. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it seems logical to me, right? I might be the only one it seems logical to, but it seems that way just the same. But what do you guys think? Do you think that reality is exactly as we see it, and this was all a waste of time? Do you think that maybe that reality might be a whole lot more than what we're able to see, from the quantum level to maybe even more macro level than our eyes can handle, perhaps multi-dimensional as it is multi-layered? We don't know. It's all a theory, and I don't know what to think, but in the end, ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge. we got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Darkwolf's Den Show for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun is only just beginning. That's right. Make sure you come back tomorrow, Thursday, January 21st, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for an all-new episode of the Darkwolf's Den Show. That's right. Tomorrow night, we're going to carry on our conversation on consciousness theory as part 2 comes up with panpsychism. That's right. We've talked about it a couple times. We've touched on it across the month. Now we're going to do a deep dive. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, a really incredible topic, and you do not want to miss. Then after Thursday, make sure you come back Friday through Sunday for our buddy, the other animal radio here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio, Mr. AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. That's right. He'll be back Friday, January 22nd, 2021, with an all-new episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live Show. That's right. He'll be talking on Friday night. His topic will be People Are Strange, and are they not? In today's world, it's not hard to look around and find a strange person, and I'm sure he'll be touching on all that and more on Friday night, January 22nd, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. That's right. Then on Saturday, January 23rd, 2021, he'll be talking about a very, very close to my heart topic. As a matter of fact, he'll be touching on the very serious topic of autism. And if you guys have not really learned a lot about that, I implore you, please listen to this episode. I'm sure it will be very, very eye-opening. Then on Sunday, January 24th, 2021, that's right, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit will be back one more time to close out the weekend here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. His topic will be mindfulness, and this is something that I try to practice a lot, being mindful of everything around me, of who I'm talking to, of how I'm going to affect everything else in my environment. I'm trying to be very, very mindful of that as best as I can. Of course, I am human, but if you want to find out more about mindfulness, and he'll most likely touch on the mindfulness meditations, no doubt, make sure you check out AJ the Rippin' Rabbit on Sunday, January 24th, 2021. And that's going to close out the weekend here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. That's right. And the rippinrabbithole.com. And speaking of the rippinrabbithole.com, make sure you jump over there and get on our mailing list. That's right, we send out an email every Wednesday, and it has the topics we're going to be covering for the week. That's right. You will get this email one time, once a week. We don't sell your information. We don't do anything like that. We just want to have you on board and make sure you're aware of what we're going to be doing all 5 days of the weekend here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. That's right. Also, while you're over at the rippinrabbithole.com, that is rippinrabbithole.com. That's right. Make sure you check out your way down the rabbit hole. That's right. Over there, you're going to find a social media alternative. And if you're interested in dropping the big boys and coming to a alternative social media, then make sure you check out the rippinrabbithole.com and drop down the rabbit hole with the rest of the rabbits, where the conversation continues 24/7. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of awesome stuff over at the rippinrabbithole.com. We've also got the 24/7 Backstage Lounge. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you drop by and say hi to myself and AJ the Rippin' Rabbit and all our amazing mod team over there in the chat room. And we're glad to have everybody on board. It's a 50-person room. It will cut off at 50, so make sure you do get in. It is first come, first serve. And I would love to hang out with you guys back there and see what you've got on your mind, ladies and gentlemen. And with that said, I really want to give a shout out, ladies and gentlemen, to Rippin' Common Sense Radio for hosting us, and we really appreciate you guys over in Rippin', Wisconsin. Shout out to you guys. Glad to have you along for the ride. That's right. Also, the ones listening worldwide in over 26 countries. We're glad to have you guys listening in on board, as well as everybody over at YouTube. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Our mod team over at YouTube does an absolutely incredible job every week, and we could not be more proud to have them. They're so loyal. They come back week after weekend, day after day, and we're lucky to have you guys on board. JoJo's CSFL champion, My Life DIY. Of course, I'm moderator, but anyway, we're glad to have you guys on board. It is always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. With that said, on behalf of Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, everybody at Rippin' Common Sense Radio, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, but dare to dream. That's right. How? Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a